Into order. Will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'll note that this meeting is being recorded and televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is anyone else recording the meeting this evening? No? Don't see anyone. All right. First on the agenda, I'd like to call a moment of silence in memory of Walter Headland Jr. Many of us knew him. Decorated veteran and really hometown hero. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. We do have some public service announcements this evening. I'll note that the deadline for citizen petition warrant articles is August 3rd, 2015 at 4 p.m. Anything else? We're now in open session. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board this evening? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. How are you this evening?
Good, thank you.
Sam Chase, 5 River Meadow Drive. Tonight I'll be speaking primarily as a resident and partially as a town official assessor. At your June 29th, 2015 meeting, a board majority suggested that the town manager's pro forma spring budget represents an unbalanced budget. That discussion was the last of many during the past 2 years, some which occurred at town meetings, where board members have characterized the town manager's budgeting practices as irresponsible. Last spring, town meeting members were scolded for voting for the town manager's preliminary budget with the words, quote, "Shame on you," unquote. Because of these characterizations, many people in town have come to believe that the town manager supports an unbalanced or deficit budget. I know this because for the last 3 weeks I have been getting calls and emails asking about how the process works. So I know that. Nothing is further from the truth, and I want to stand here tonight and assure the residents of this town that the town does not operate with an unbalanced budget. The town manager couldn't do that even if he wanted to, because Massachusetts state law requires all cities and towns to have a balanced budget for the current fiscal year, or the state will not certify the town's tax rate. The state certifies our tax rate based on the assessor's recapitulation sheet, which is sent to the Department of Revenue after the fall town meeting. The receipts and expenses entry that is shown on the recap must by law be in balance, or we don't get a tax rate. Now, I've been in town for 36 years, and I started participating in town meeting long before Mr. Cohen ever arrived. And I can't remember any time when we did not adjust the current year budget in the fall. As long as the budget that emerges from town fall meeting is balanced, and that is reflected in the assessor's recap, the town has a balanced budget. Now, let's talk a little bit about free cash, because the inquiries I got, many inquiries over the last 3 weeks, made me realize that a lot of people don't understand the mechanism that we call free cash, and I understand that.
Mr. Chase?
Yes.
I don't know how much longer you're planning.
Not much longer. Please bear with me.
Maybe 2 more minutes would keep it within
Not
about a 5 minute.
Not even that long, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Free cash is defined as available spendable surplus funds, and in other words, it is actual cash on hand that has no claims against it. At the end of the fiscal year, the town accountant closes the books and determines the operating surplus, which is receipts less expenditures for the fiscal year. Then she deducts uncollected accounts receivable, unpaid invoice amounts, and other accrued liabilities through June 30 from that number. And the result is surplus cash that is available. And that's usually what the state certifies as our free cash number in the fall. Massachusetts Association of Town Finance Committees recommends that cities and towns budget conservatively to achieve a 3 to 5% operating surplus at the end of the fiscal year, although I would say that 1.5% to 2% is probably a more realistic expectation. I want to emphasize that the projected drawing down of the stabilization fund cash reserve within a budget cycle does not, in and of itself, create a deficit, as long as fall town meeting replenishes the drawdown from free cash within the fiscal year. In other words, if cash reserves stay the same or increase year over year, there's no deficit. Only when the reserves are drawn down to cover operating expenses and they're not replenished can it be said that we're spending more than we're taking in, and that's exactly what happened in the early 2000s when the stabilization fund decreased from about $9 million down to $2 million within a 6-year period, and that was before Mr. Cohen arrived in town. Now, since his arrival, Mr. Cohen has reversed that trend to the point where we now have about $8.6 million in our stabilization fund. And now I'm going to take 1 second.
One more minute.
No, not even that long, Mr. Chairman. 1 second to offer a personal opinion, and I want to make sure people understand this is my opinion. We have a town manager who demonstrates every day that he's got the best interests of the town in mind, and the characterization of his budget actions as irresponsible over the last 2 years is not supported by the facts, and in my opinion, is politically motivated. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thank you for clarifying the budget cycle. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Gilroy, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager. On the 29th of June, I watched the Board of Selectmen's meeting for the singular purpose of watching the previously postponed performance reviews for our town accountant, Darlene Lucier, and our town manager, Paul Cohen. The review for Ms. Lucier was handled very professionally by Mr. Joyce, with the other board members giving her an exceptional rating and a 2-step above average increase. I've had the pleasure to meet and work with Darlene on many occasions over the past few years, and she is indeed exceptional and a valuable asset to the town. The performance review of our town manager, Paul Cohen, began rather quietly, but soon descended into a demagogic, totally unprofessional display from one member who insisted that Mr. Cohen's goals for the next fiscal year to include a balanced budget without the use of either stabilization funds or the anticipated free cash. And that was even talked about for the next 5 years. At this point, Mr. Cohen, obviously frustrated by the balanced budget ideology, first stated that this was most likely an unattainable goal without imposing draconian budget cuts across the board. Mr. Cohen also felt that the town council should rule on his ability to prepare and present the budget and the Board of Selectmen's function in driving the budget process, as stated in the town charter. The town council has rendered his decision, and the town manager does have the sole discretion to prepare and submit the town budget. Just as a side note, Fran McDougall had planned to be here tonight and read the full rendering from the town council, but we were saved by the heat, and she's not here.
It was posted, I think.
Right.
So.
Okay, in my opinion, this very unpleasant, uncomfortable exchange was totally unwarranted and unprofessional, given that it had no bearing on the business at hand. Paul Cohen is the penultimate town manager in this area, and his knowledge, expertise, honesty, and managerial skills are admired and well-known and beyond reproach. To put anyone through this gauntlet, especially during a performance review, is unheard of, and this particular exchange was nothing less than appalling. We should not put our ranking town officials in this no-win situation just to satisfy the political appetite for a minority. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. I hope you stay. We will be clarifying some of those points tonight from last week, but thank you.
Good evening. Lynn Marcella from the Chelmsford Parade Committee. I just wanted to do a little wrap-up with you after the parade and thank everybody for what turned out to be a wonderful event. Mother Nature cooperated, so we were very happy with that. Our team, which is appointed by the town this year, included Tom Boucher, Amanda Camerano, Jim Cullen, our wonderful treasurer, Hank Hamlin, Jeff Hardy, Paul Hardy, Chuck Marcella, Rich McLaughlin, Brian Reedy, Karen Reedy, Rick Romano, Donna Sargent, Dan Sylvia, and Arlene Wood. I'd like to give a special thanks to our town manager, Paul Cohen, who is always there for us, helps us with whatever we need as far as coordinating with DPW, fire, police. Everybody works together, and it's wonderful. Special thanks to Colin Spence from the police department for all his help with traffic coordination and security. Also the fire department and DPW, who is a great help to us as far as setting up reviewing stand and bleachers and all that. It couldn't be done without all their help, and we truly appreciate it. I'd like to thank our sponsors this year, for without their help, we wouldn't have a parade. We need to raise $50,000 to $60,000 every year to do this, and we truly appreciate them. Our red sponsors were Blake Funeral Home, Charles Parlee, Chelmsford Business Association, Dolan Funeral Home, Enterprise Bank, Lockheed Martin, Lowell 5, Northern Bank, Republic Services, Harrington Wine and Liquors, Trinity EMS, 3E Moving, Best Western Plus, Chelmsford Lumber, Ferreira's Towing, The Sun, and Waste Management. As most of you probably know, most of the members of the parade committee are members and board members of the Chelmsford Business Association, and they really give a lot of their time and effort. And this year, the Business Association is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and they've been very happy to help over all these years, and a good asset to this town to have this association. They've done wonderful things in addition to this. We worked with Chelmsford Telemedia this year, and we think that the televising of the parade worked out really well this year, a few less glitches than we had last year, and they're still showing it every so often, so if you haven't seen it, take a good look at it. It's great. We were very happy to have our parade marshal this year, Matt Scott from Chelmsford Telemedia, who recently retired, and he was great. And probably one of the best things that we got comments about was this year our hometown heroes were our 4 retired police and fire chiefs, and all of them came, including 91-year-old Fred Reed, and he rode in that fire truck and had a wonderful time, and it was just so incredible to see that. You know, we had one come from Florida, Bob Hughes, so it was excellent. And then I'd just like to announce our raffle and float winners. Our raffle sports extravaganza raffle winner was Steve Gallo. Our cash raffle winners were P. Burnt, who won the $1,655. Second prize of $500 was Laurie Leahy. And we had 5 $100 winners, David Driscoll, Alex Lauder, Carrie DeCoste, Elaine Lizardo, and Sylvia Keltz. And our float winners this year were red winner was Cub Scout Pack 45, white was the Lowell Humane Society, blue Studio A Dance, and the committee's choice was Sarah Joy Foundation. And again this year we had the Littleton Parade Committee come and be our judges, so it was very non-partial, so shouldn't have any issues with that. We are already booking bands. The Monday after the parade, I was on the phone to book bands for next year, because if we don't do it now, we're not going to get them for next year. So we're working on it. We're not taking much time off, and we'd like to encourage people, if anybody is interested. I thought when I was here just before the 4th that this was our 8th year doing it as a team. This was actually our 9th year. And we said we'd do it 10 until the town's 50th. So now I think we might go 11 to the town's 50th. We'll see. We can twist a few arms. I don't know.
Appreciated.
So if anybody would like to get involved, please contact us through our website or email, chelmsfordparade.org. We need people to learn the ropes and start taking over, because nothing's difficult, but there's a lot to it. So, we'd like to get some new people trained. And then one more thing, and I will let you go, is we're always looking for names of parade marshals. So over the next 11 months, if you think of somebody that you think would be a good parade marshal, please let us know. So we appreciate you all being there, and any questions?
No, but I think thank you again to the committee and to the Chelmsford Business Association and to everyone who donated. It was a fantastic parade. We can't say it enough here. We said it at the last meeting.
Thank you.
And,
we have a good team. It was great.
Yeah, good luck next year, and we'll keep spreading the message about the volunteers as well. Paul, do you know if we've received any new applicants or any interested folks?
I know they've, some applicants reached out to Lynn directly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so I
but
know
we-
you've been
we
promoting
need
that
a
a lot
lot.
this year, so
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that a few people will step
And
forward.
as I said, nothing's difficult. There's just a lot of detail, and, we got a few good people that can just start taking things over. That's great. And we'll help. So, thank you.
Thank you again. We're still.
I'm not speaking to them.
You can do that. We are still in open session. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? One more?
Mr. Chairman, fellow board members, Bob Joyce, 103 Turnpike Road. I'm speaking as a resident
Okay.
/ maybe a little selectman, but not much. I find it interesting that Sam Chase gets all the phone calls. I got 2 letters telling me I did a good job on the review. I wish you'd tell them to call the selectmen about it, too, so it isn't second.
Can you speak into the microphone, Bob?
I never heard from you.
How do you know I
Yeah.
didn't tell you to call the selectmen?
Bob,
No, okay.
why don't you, if you could just address us directly about your points, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Well, I just want to make things accurate, that's all. Okay? And for as many people there are out there that think we do a lousy job, there are people that we do think we do a good job. And I don't want people to think that we're not paying attention to what people want. And one of the things they want is Paul Cohen, the town manager, works for us. So we ought to be able to have some input into what his goals are. On another issue, I want to talk about the school department. Recently did a cash out with the former school superintendent for $140,000. Now, I did receive a couple of calls on that. Where do we get the $140,000? That's the first thing. And someone has to account for all the money we spent on this thing, starting back with the shortage of the bad allocation of money, paying off the business manager, and paying off Tiano.
You can certainly add that as a report in the future at maybe
Yeah.
our next meeting.
I mean, my personal opinion is the people from the school committee should all resign, because that is not what this town wants. They don't want to do a payout to a superintendent who screwed things up, okay? And I'll tell them to their face. I'm not afraid to tell them that to their face. But we bailed them out for $800,000 plus. We paid off the payoffs to the business manager. We hired the auditor. What I want in the next month is to get a full report of what it really costs the town of Chelmsford for that whole school debacle.
We can certainly request that.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We are still in open session. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Let me just make sure I write that down. Okay, why don't we move on to committee vacancies? Selectman Joyce?
Yep. Do we have a list? There it is. That is the list. Committee vacancies as of 7/20/2015. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, 1 3-year term. Board of Appeals, 1 3-year term. Board of Appeals, another 3-year term. One is ending 2016, the other one is ending 2018. Community Action Program Committee, 1-year term ending 2016. Cultural Council, 3 years ending 2018. Economic Development Commission, 3-year term ending 2018. Finance Committee, 2 3-year terms ending 2018. I assume those have been filled, though, recently,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Great Brook Farm Advisory Committee, one-year term ending 2016. Land Management Subcommittee, 2-year term ending 2016. Public Celebrations Committee, 2 openings, 1-year terms ending 6/2016. And the Tree Committee, 1 opening for a 3-year term ending 6/2018. If you wish to apply for any of these positions, you can go on the website, www.townofchelmsford.us, and there are a listing of openings there. And there is a form that you can fill out, and you can email to tmoffice@townofchelmsford.us. Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Joyce. We have a number of one-day beer and wine licenses brought to us by Susan Gates at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, 1A North Road. Are any of the applicants here who would like to announce their event tonight? Okay, seeing none, we have one for Nick Gumas Quintet, 7/31/2015, a JC Don concert, 8/8/2015, the Double Next concert, 8/22/2015, and a Windy Glick concert, 9/5/2015. Do any board members have any questions or comments on any of the applications?
I make a motion to approve one-day beer and wine licenses for Chelmsford Center for the Arts to be exercised on the premises at 1A North Road on the following dates: July 31st, 2015, August 8th, 2015, August 22nd, 2015, September 5th, 2015, for the hours and times listed.
I'll second.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? That's unanimous. Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 6, reports and presentations. We have our energy manager here with us tonight, Michelle Arif, to discuss a few issues. Good evening.
Good evening. So I'm going to talk about a couple things tonight. I'll start off by talking about the Green Communities Competitive Grant Award. This is a grant that's offered by DOER every year. It is a competitive grant, and it's for communities that are designated as green communities are able to apply for this grant each year. So we applied for a grant this year for implementing an energy management system and upgrading energy management systems in 4 of our buildings, and we got the grant. So I'm just going to quickly go over the grants that we got, the projects that we got the grants for. There's a list in your packets. So the first one was Center Elementary School. We got the funding to implement an energy management system on all the classrooms, converting pneumatic controls to direct digital controls. The direct digital controls are more efficient and will result in more energy savings. At McCarthy Middle School, we got the grant to update direct digital controls for 4 air handler units. At Senior Center, we're going to add the building to the energy management system. And at Adams Library, we're going to modify the current energy management system and add demand control ventilation. So the total funding that we got was for $178,400. So we're very excited to implement these projects.
That's great.
I have
Can I
a
ask a
quick
question?
question.
Any questions? Sure.
Paul, I'll direct it to you. There's always been complaints by some of the teachers about some classrooms are hot, some are cold and such. Will that fix this?
We'll address some of the items in the classrooms in terms of classroom instability. But some of it won't be. The biggest concern is now that you do have air circulating at the schools, and that was not the case in the past. And so what's happening is they're feeling air circulation and thinking it's a cooling problem. And I think and Michelle, she dealt with it all winter, and that really became the issue.
Yeah, it's the moving air. Some of the univents before weren't working, and now they are. So people are getting airflow into their classrooms, which is really good for indoor air quality. But during the winter, when people are feeling moving air, they think that it's cooling or it's not heating. But that's not the issue. It's just not there's ventilation in the classrooms.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Paul, why wasn't this covered under the 18 million?
Because the 18 million was the top 18 million. There were always items that can be done to improve that didn't make the cut. And that's what we use this grant for, is to continue to do items on the list that, as we move down. And in fact, if Michelle wants to take a moment, you also have a technical assistance grant that you've submitted to do work over at the CCA for the HVAC system over there. You
Right.
want to just take a moment, talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So this is a technical assistance grant that we applied for. We haven't heard back yet, but they provide funding for us to hire a third-party energy consultant. And the project that I want to look at is the heating units at the Center for the Arts. We had some heating issues in those buildings all winter. They have heat pumps, which are not good for the sort of weather that we had this winter, below 0-degree days. So the idea is to get a third-party consultant who would be able to look at the current heating system in the building and suggest an improved heating system that's more energy efficient and also is capable of heating the building up to the temperature that we want it at for concerts and events that they have there.
Great.
Yeah.
How much will that grant be for? Do you
It's
know?
for $12,500.
Okay.
Yeah, we receive it. And so I just have a quick question back to the Green Communities Grant, or these particular 4 projects. Is there a way that we can easily track the estimated energy savings for these projects? So if we do ever have a question from Johnson Controls, we can, basically they wouldn't get credit for any additional ongoing energy improvements that we make to the building above and beyond the ESCO project?
Yeah, so we do have estimated numbers for how much energy we're going to save, but the way that Johnson Controls measures their energy savings, they don't just look at the numbers. So they don't look at how much energy we use in one year and then how much energy we use in the second year. They actually look at their equipment and the runtime hours, and in that way they calculate how much energy their equipment is saving them, and in that way the energy savings are accredited to their equipment only and not to things that we've done.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, I'll let you move on to your next topic then.
Yeah, so the next topic is the just an update on the solar energy installations and the ESCO project. So the ESCO project is pretty much complete. All the ECMs are complete. The solar was the last one. We just finished the solar project. The solar has been producing as of June 1st. You'll probably notice there's LCD TVs. There's one in this office on the first floor, and we have them in all the schools, and they show how much solar is being produced. It shows real-time solar production data. The total project cost, as you know, was $18.1 million, of which $13.7 million was allocated towards implementing ECMs in the schools, and $4.4 million was allocated towards town buildings. Now we're in the process of just officially closing out the project. We're getting our final closeout documents and finishing out just minor punch list items. And as soon as the project is complete, that's when Johnson Controls will start their M&V, which is the measurement verification period. So that's where they come back every year and look at how much energy we've saved through these ECMs and make sure that we're saving as much energy as we're expected to save.
Are they going to provide the as-built
Yes.
drawings? Okay.
Yes, so they're in the process of handing those over to us now, the as-built.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
And now I'm going to move on to just an update on the electricity supply aggregation plan. We filed our plan with the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities. They're going to have a public hearing at the end of August in Boston, and it's just sort of a formality. They do it for all the towns that have applied for a municipal aggregation plan. It's just sort of a hearing where the public can come and provide input on our aggregation plan. The aggregation plan and the DPU notice is posted on the town website, and this notice is also posted downstairs outside the town clerk's office in case anyone's interested. And so this DPU hearing is the first step in their approval process. After that, it'll take them a few months to approve this. I don't really know how much. Nobody really knows. Sometimes it takes them as less as 4 months or as much as 8 months. So it's sort of, it's not concrete how long it'll take them to approve the process. But the idea, we hope to have this plan implemented by May of 2016. So we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed.
Great.
Are there any questions on that?
Questions about aggregation? No.
No, I just had one quick question regarding Do we have a list of all these projects that didn't get taken care of from the ESCO grant, money that we put aside, so that we understand coming forward when we get requests for another HVAC for the town offices and things like that, we understand what was covered and how much more is left to go?
So when the ESCO started, there wasn't a concrete list of projects like, okay, these projects made the cut, these projects we're going to leave aside for now. Sort of as time went on, we determined the need for these projects. For example, Center School, we realized a lot of the univents were running 24/7, some weren't even running at all, which then led to us coming up with the idea of applying for this grant so we can implement controls on these projects. So, I mean, we can come up with a list of energy projects that we would like to do in the future, but at this point, it's sort of on an as-needs basis.
So are you saying that all the town buildings are covered right now, and for the most part, we're done?
Yes, until new energy technology. I mean, the energy efficiency world is constantly, there's new technologies coming out. Just DDC controls is still relatively new. So, I mean, until new projects come out, I would say as of now, we've done as much as we can. But that's not to say I'm sure there's projects out there if we really research and really, get the latest energy technology that's out there. There's always something new.
I was just surprised last month when that came up that wasn't part of either the ESCO or the fire station improvements. And so I just don't want to see any more surprises that, oh, we forgot this building, or there's another computer system that's going to require more, a different system. So that was what I was looking for.
Right. I mean, it's sort of, we identify these projects as time goes on, and we look at these buildings and we look at how a building on an EMS is functioning versus a building without an EMS. And that's when you really realize the benefits of having an energy management system. And you think, okay, well, this building seems like it could use it as well. So why don't we apply for that for the next round of funding?
Paul, if I remember correctly at the beginning, I don't think the purpose of the Johnson Controls contract was to cover absolutely everything in the town. It was more of what can they do to help our more urgent needs and within the confines of
Performance
this
contract.
cost structure.
Right, so that it wouldn't be no net costs. That's correct.
Yeah, so it wasn't a matter of just trying to do absolutely everything to make us energy efficient, but what could they do within their control and that we needed the most and make this contract work?
Right.
Yeah.
That they could commit to. Does
Right.
Right.
that make sense?
I don't know if this is for Paul or
It seemed like it was 10 years ago.
the speaker there, but are we 100% in the school system applying that money that should be theirs against the electric bills?
Oh, yeah.
Remember
Oh,
how
yeah,
last
yeah.
year we didn't have it?
Right, when the balance sheet is done for the end of the year, then we'll come back and give a report on utility costs. Yes, we will do that.
Okay.
But that's not, it'll probably be maybe another 4 to 6 weeks, I think, before
Okay.
that's available.
Right.
But that is
What
something we
was-
want to look at, because you remember, that was a discussion point
Right.
during the fall months of.
Taking money out of
Right.
their budget and,
Right.
and
Exactly.
now we have to put it back in, right?
And as Michelle adjusted, that gets adjusted really to degree days, because one winter isn't the same as the next winter.
Right.
But we will give a report in terms of what budget versus actual.
Okay, thank you.
More questions on that?
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you very much.
Good job.
Fantastic. Okay, next up, we have Finance Director John Souza. He'd request the authorization for special legal counsel to collect reimbursements from other government units for portions of retiree health insurance premiums.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight I have a short presentation for you that just explains how retiree health insurance reimbursements are handled between municipalities. And the first slide, the very first slide, showed the section of law that governs this. It is Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 9A.5, kind of a long name. This was adopted by the legislature back under as part of the Municipal Health Insurance Reform Law, and that's the statute that you have the full text in your packet. What this does is it allows a municipality to obtain reimbursement for health care premiums, the town share that we provide, that are provided to a retiree that has creditable service in one or more other governmental units. So I thought it'd be helpful to use an example to kind of explain that in simple English. So, for example, if we have this employee, Jane Doe, and during her public service career, she's been employed by the following communities, and this is going in chronological order. So she began her service with the town of Bedford for 28 years, then she transferred to the city of Lowell for 1 year, and then finally she spent the last 5 years of her career in Chelmsford. So you can see that Jane has 34 years of creditable service. However, just over 85% of that is with communities other than Chelmsford. So what this section of law allows us to do is allows us to go back to those other two communities and bill those communities for about 85% of the amount that we're providing for this retiree's health insurance costs. Before this statute was enacted, since the retiree that I used in this example concluded her career in Chelmsford, before the statute took effect, we would be responsible for all of that retiree's health care insurance. So you can see the advantage that this provides. And the way it works is my office is responsible for issuing invoices by January 15th. So last January, we issue invoices for expenses. We have to look backward under the law for what we spent in FY14 for those retirees. Just to explain for the billing. And then finally, then we move on to payment. And it's pretty simple under the law, or at least it sounds so, that says the treasurer of the other governmental unit shall immediately take all necessary steps to ensure prompt payment of this amount. And in most cases, they do. Unfortunately, it's not always that simple in the real world, but I'll touch more on that later. And then I thought it would be helpful if we provided you just a snapshot of the last 3 years. We began billing under this law in fiscal year 12, which is the first year we're allowed to do it. And you can see, just to run through some of the numbers with you, the first year we billed just over $13,000. We received just under $9,700 in payments. It left about $33,384 outstanding. The next year we billed just over $24,000. We ended up receiving $7,800 in payments. You can see the trend, though, is the outstanding payments have gone up in recent years. And currently, the town is owed about $38,411. And I should point out that 90% of that amount is owed by three municipalities. And then just to show you the flip side of things, the bottom half shows the payments that we've made to other municipalities. So these would be for retirees that, that had some share of their service in Chelmsford. And you can see over the 3 years, it's been about $9,000 in total. So then, just to touch on a couple of limitations that this law has is the first one is the reimbursement rate. And the way it works, it's a little confusing sometimes when you read it in the Mass General Law, but what it says is other governmental units shall be charged based on their own contribution rate or the contribution rate of the first employer, whichever is lower. So again, another example to make it easier. Chelmsford, say my office receives a bill, we'll call it from the town of somewhere, that's calculated, and the town of somewhere provides their retirees, they split the cost of health insurance, 70% of their town, 30% is contributed by the retiree. If I receive a bill from this town, the law only provides that since Chelmsford does a 60-40 split where the town pays 60% of retiree health insurance, the retiree pays 40%, as treasurer, I'm only obligated to pay 60%. So I would just go back and ask that town for a revised invoice, and in most cases they would issue it pretty quickly. Another limitation of this law is that the section of law does not contain any specific language that imposes interest or penalties on health insurance reimbursements that are outstanding. So, for example, if we're trying to collect this from a town and they either refuse to pay or they're extremely slow in paying, there's really no penalties that we can add on behalf of the town. Further, the law doesn't define any procedure for how we can get some kind of legal remedy other than it says maintaining an action or contract. So basically we'd have to take legal action in court ultimately if all else fails. So just to run through you briefly with our collection efforts to date, as I mentioned, we've been issuing the invoices to other towns by January 15th of each year. The town manager has been working in cooperation with me on this. One of the things that occurred to us is that In some towns, the treasurer and the town might not be communicating this promptly to the town manager, so our town manager provided a cover letter on his stationery with the second notice bills that I sent out, and they were mailed directly to both the treasurer and the town manager of those communities. We did get some limited response, but we still need to do more in that area. And then we did consult with the Mass Department of Revenue, Municipal Finance Law Bureau, and we received an opinion back that the DOR doesn't have any regulatory authority under the statute. We also consulted with our town council, Copeland and Page, and one of the things that they studied the problem, but one of the things that they came back with a recommendation is that, as you know, our town council represents a number of municipalities in the Commonwealth. So one of the issues they saw is that there's a potential conflict there, because if they did have to take legal action on behalf of Chelmsford, they would be representing us, the plaintiff, but they might also be the town council for the defendant community. So one of the things they recommended was exploring the use of special town council, or special counsel. Just to bring you up to date, last week, our town manager had the opportunity to meet with the Burlington town manager and Burlington treasurer, because they're undertaking a similar course of action. So that gives you an overview of the history and the process. So really, the next step, so to collect the unpaid balances that we saw on the slide, here tonight, seeking the board's approval for the authorization of the use of special legal counsel. One of the things we did is we explored some firms that have municipal experience, and we found a firm that we have named there, Blattman, Bobrowski, Mead, and Tallerman of Newburyport. The law is quite established in municipal law, and the good news is that they don't have any conflicts with any of the communities that we would be involved with. One of the first things they would likely do is to issue a demand or collections letter to the 3 communities and see where that goes. We don't anticipate many hours of legal service. We think that once action is favorable with one of the communities, that word will spread pretty quickly, and we'll receive payments from some of the others.
John, are they just going to be paid hourly?
Yes, it would be an hourly contract, paid. It would be the rate. I believe the billing rate would be about $200 per hour, similar to our other town council contracts.
Why couldn't we send a demand letter?
We have.
We have, and they've not responded to them.
Right.
I've sent them, and Paul has also sent them.
We've notified them once with the initial bill and then a second.
Second with a, and there's been no response. One of the problems is that, unfortunately, some communities kind of see this law as optional, where there were really no penalties in here, and so if they make a decision that they're not going to pay these, then we have little recourse other than to go, take legal action.
Did they indicate any possibly how much it's going to cost us? I know $200 an hour, but I'm willing to go to like maybe $2,000. But after that, I mean, I don't want this to turn into a big bill for a law firm.
No, I share that. You can see the amount outstanding is $38,000.
Yeah.
I think it would be in the low thousands, if at all.
Okay, one final question. When did this act get legislated? When did it start?
Municipal health insurance law was around the
2010.
end of 2012, I believe, end of 2011.
Was that when they allowed the uses the GIC and
Right.
stuff like that?
Yes.
That was that one?
This was part of that?
This was part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
We asked them to pay part of the legal fee as well, John, if we're going after them.
We asked, we'd say recoup the legal fees that were involved. Unfortunately, we did check with Copeland and Page earlier on,
It's not in the
and
statute.
they did a full study and gave us an opinion, said unfortunately because of the way the law is written, and they gave us a detailed opinion that we would not be able to recoup the legal fees. But we think, like I said, our goal, one of the things I wanted to convey tonight is we're not going to be having this firm contact all Massachusetts cities and towns. That would be, all we're really involved here with is 3 communities that owe about 90% of that amount. And we think once the large dominoes fall, so to speak, or they get the message, word's going to spread pretty quickly, and others will. Why?
Do we have many others that we do the other way, where we have to contribute to other towns?
We had, and that earlier slide, George, just to answer that, for some reason, it's less than what we're paying, what we're billing out. In the last 3 years, we've paid about a total of just over $9,000 to other communities for our share of retirees that, started in Chelmsford but finished somewhere else.
Not one of those that we're paying it, or us, I mean, it's not like a net payment or anything like that.
No, one of the things we've done is I haven't seen the evidence of that. One of the things we've tried to do is we've tried to pay our bills, because we felt if we're going out and take this action, we don't want to be in the position of saying, well, Chelmsford didn't pay us, so they're holding our payments, so.
We haven't seen anybody try to have it both ways. In other words, the communities that we're chasing have not billed us. And, so it's not like they sent us a bill and refused to pay the bill that we sent them.
Right.
If that's what you're getting at. No, we haven't had that experience yet. So they could be a little bit more owed if those communities start billing us. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
But we're current with any bills.
Oh, yes, we've paid everything that's come through,
Yes.
because otherwise we wouldn't be
All right.
genuine.
So, are there any other questions for John? Is there a motion to allow him to use special counsel as recommended?
So moved.
Are we putting a ceiling on? We haven't had a second, I mean, discussion.
Well, is there a second to the motion
I'm gonna
first?
put a,
Do you want
yeah, second.
to, with a ceiling on this? So
No,
that not
just
to
second it
exceed-
for now. and
Oh,
we'll
I'll
discuss it.
second.
Okay. So the motion is second. Are there any further
I'm just
discussion?
gonna ask you, is there a ceiling,
Not to exceed?
I mean, we,
What does
I
it mean?
suppose we could.
And/or we could ask John to come back and give an update to the board within 4 to 6 months or something. We can do both.
Yeah.
Because I think we want to keep you informed
Yeah.
in the community of how this is proceeding.
I just don't want to see a $10,000 bill from them.
And we will, what we'll do is we'll provide you, as we provide you with copies of our legal bills every month, we'll provide you copies of special legal bills as well. So
Okay.
you'll see them as they're being incurred.
So maybe by say the end of September or so, in another
Sure.
two to 3 months, if you could come back, that'd be good.
Sure, I'd be glad to
I
do
think if
that.
they were gonna respond, they would respond in the next couple of months.
Yes.
If they don't have it then, they're probably not gonna respond at all. I
Then,
would
then
think,
if they
right?
don't respond to the demand letter, then the next thing would be a filing in the Superior Court for a complaint. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that,
and at some
you'll know about
point,
that.
Or
because
we'll
it's,
send George after.
at that point, when it becomes litigation, we
Maybe
may want to do that
50%.
actually in executive session.
Sure.
Because I wouldn't want to discuss any particular strategy or anything. We're only doing the authorization tonight, so
Sure.
just keep
Okay.
that in mind. So the motion is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next on the agenda, we have Community Development Director Evan Polanski to discuss the affordable housing certification for 101 Mill Road. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So I must say, I am somewhat surprised that this item is on the agenda. It dates back well over a year ago when we sought certification for the Mill Road project. Since then, I was not aware of any news associated with the certification. Nevertheless, I did provide you with some material for your packet. I'm assuming that this is a result of a Housing Advisory Board public presentation on the updated plan production plan that took place at the end of June. So I'm not exactly sure what we want to discuss this evening. Thought maybe we'd just start with whatever questions you may have. I think the material that's in the packet speaks for itself. A lot of this information is not new. If you recall, almost 3 years ago, we had a tri-board meeting, which was the sole purpose of discussing what certification meant, what it didn't mean. Since then, the Zoning Board of Appeals, back in 2013, approved 116 units at Chelmsford Woods. That certification ran for 1 year, from June 24th, 2013 to June 24th, 2014. Then in June of 2014, the Zoning Board approved 108 units at Mill Road. That certification ran from June 24th, 2014 to June 24th, 2015. And that brings us to where we are today.
And this shouldn't say 101 Mill Road,
No.
right?
It's Mill Road, the other.
Okay,
The other Mill
that's
Road,
why it
yeah.
kind
Oh,
of threw
yeah,
me off.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
The other
no,
Mill
that's actually a good catch.
Right.
Good to know.
What's the address
So-
of that?
I guess I have a question. So where are we now as far as the deferral? We have no deferrals? Or-
No, sir.
We're not under any safe harbors right now. There's no 40B projects in the pipeline. There's no 40B projects in front of the Board of Selectmen. There's none in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. As you recall, essentially, a letter from DHCD would come to the Board of Selectmen indicating that they've received a site approval letter, asking the Board of Selectmen for their comment. That process takes between 3 to 6 months. We
We
don't
haven't done that
we don't have
yet.
any such letter.
Oh, okay. So it will come back to us?
If and when there's a new project?
No, the current project on Mill Road.
No, the
Won't come back.
Princeton and Mill Road, that project's been approved. It was
Okay.
well over a year ago. No appeals were taken.
If they had pulled their building permit by the 1st of June, would we have been in safe harbor?
No, the only way we would have received a second year of safe harbor is that if an additional 30 units were approved during calendar year 14. So if you recall, Mill Road was approved in June of 2014. Safe harbor was ending. If the town had the opportunity to approve 30 additional units that counted on the inventory during calendar year 14, we then would have received a second year of certification, which would have extended it to 2016.
I guess I didn't understand that, like, the additional units would have to be in that same year to extend
Yeah,
it. It sort of
production-
resets itself every year,
Production
what
is
you're
based
saying.
upon calendar year.
Okay.
Certification is 1 year from the date of approval. So for Chelmsford, it's 69 units per calendar year. It gives the town 1 year certification. 2 years would be 138. So unfortunately, depending on your perspective, after Mill Road was approved in June of 2014, we did receive another 40B. That was at 271 Riverneck Road, Greenwood Estates. However, that was a 5-unit group home and I think 6 or 7 single families. So during calendar year 2014, that project wasn't even approved during that calendar year. Zoning Board ultimately approved that project in 2015.
Evan, during our last, if I recall, during our last Housing Advisory Board meeting, it was discussed that maybe the chairman would come in front of the board and ask the board what they feel is the most important parts of our plan.
Yeah, that's a separate issue, and I don't know how much we want to get into it, but there were, this is probably or likely one of an outgrowth from that Housing Advisory Board public meeting. There were several other potential action items. Housing Advisory Board has met once since that June public presentation to try to figure out how they want to proceed. They haven't taken any votes yet, but it's very likely that they will decide to appear before this board and ask for your guidance as to how the Board of Selectmen wish to proceed with a 40B policy.
Yeah,
I'll be happy to have them whenever they're ready, certainly.
well, I think that they would be looking for some input, I think.
For some guidance, yeah, essentially,
Just-
again, I'm not sure how much information you want this evening, but as you recall, a Housing Advisory Board requested from the Board of Selectmen permission to update the 2011 plan, which is good for 5 years. Board of Selectmen granted the authorization. Housing Advisory Board has been working diligently on that update. That culminated with a public presentation back in June. The strategy was much the same as the first go-round. I had identified priority sites in which Housing Advisory Board thought were appropriate locations for 40B type development. It identified whether the preference was rental or ownership, and type of housing style. All of those sites, I think there were probably 10 new sites. They were all privately owned. A high number of them were located in East Chelmsford. The public that was at that meeting, 30 or 35 so individuals, clearly indicated their displeasure with the strategy. They thought that the strategy should be primarily town-owned land or publicly owned land, and they were not supportive of any of the privately owned sites, regardless of density or housing style. So that likely leads the Housing Advisory Board to truncate their process and come directly to you to ask for your guidance and input as to how the town should proceed, if at all.
Right. I think that makes sense. And so they just really didn't locate any town-owned parcels that were appropriate?
Well,
Very few?
there's only one obvious. As you recall, the original plan in 2011 had Oak Hill. Well, that's since been removed from consideration. The only other site that was identified was 54 Richardson Road, the DPW site. It's important to remember that the planning horizon for a plant production plan is 5 years. So Housing Advisory Board did inquire, and the site realistically is not available for production within the next 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So Housing Advisory Board did not include it in their plan, since it wouldn't be available for production.
Right.
The only other publicly owned site that's been identified is the UMass West Campus. I've been in direct contact with them during this process. There's no new news. They have no official plans with the site. They're aware that it exists. They're aware that it's an asset. Again, even if the university indicated that there was an interest or willingness, is that site available for production within 3 to 5 years? Unlikely not.
Right.
Also, I think there's a misunderstanding that, I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, but maybe a misconception that we would get that without having to pay any money. I mean...
Yeah, that's a complicated matter.
Some of these parcels would require substantial amounts of cash input from the town, like maybe in that case, up to $3 to $4 million has been estimated for. And I'm not sure people are aware of that with the UMass campus. And I think UMass has a little bit of an edge on that, or part of first refusal, I believe.
It's in the university's control right
now.
Right now
It is.
Then
right.
it would have to go through the Department of Capital Asset Management if they surplus it.
And then UMass would maybe then have to relinquish it, and I don't think that the new chancellor, I know the old chancellor would not have relinquished it for any less than $3 million, and maybe or $4 million. So, and you've made, and I think that's the reason we wanted to come in front of the board, because and I'm not, this is not a complaint, this is just something that you stated that you wanted the housing authority
Right.
to do this type of thing. You didn't want private developers.
Right, exactly.
But when you're talking about that kind of money, I think it's very difficult for public funds to be, to come up with that type of money from public funds. I mean, it's just, so, I mean, it's so I think we just wanted to meet, ask you people what you felt, how you felt about the plan, what some of your ideas would be, maybe what some of the misconceptions you may be hearing from some of the constituents.
Yeah. Housing Advisory Board is scheduled to meet next week, so they may vote on that process, which would then mean that they'd likely try to get on one of your upcoming agendas.
If that's something that you people, the rest of us, I mean, if we want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want the committee to be out there and not feel like they have good direction from the board or from the town. If they're, if they feel like they're struggling with their input from the residents, I know they already went through it the first time where some of the locations on their plan were approved, and then residents, after the fact were upset about some of those items. So we wouldn't want to encourage them to keep looking at parcels that, the community is not going to be in favor of. So I'm happy to have them come in and see if we can clear the air and give them some better direction.
I think there was one parcel in particular that was mentioned, that it's not like that's what we wanted to do. It's just that that's a possibility because it's there, and it would be a perfect site if, somebody, again, somebody would have to pay for it.
Yeah, and that was the understanding on the first plan. They did a really great
No
job.
one's looking to take any land from anybody or anything like that, that, to the best of my knowledge. And
Right.
so, I want us all to be on the same team, same, well, on the same train of thought anyway, you know what I
Right.
mean? And you can agree or disagree, but, there are some misconceptions, and there are, a few people who don't really understand.
All right.
And
Yeah, when
there's no public money, there's no state money for, leaving veterans houses. We try to do it to get to be, so we could, take care of the people who really, really need it. They all need it, don't get me wrong, that we're applying for. But specific purposes, and where we might be able to get funding, but there's not even veterans funding out there statewide now. I don't think there's some for special types of affordable housing, and maybe like a 40R or 40S, which would reimburse you for students and stuff, and give a little bit of infrastructure money to the town.
yeah.
But then you got to get lucky and get, file a plan and get the right person to come in and want to take it over. You know what I mean? So.
All right.
I have a question. Based on if the plan you propose were to go forward in whatever format, how would that be used then to direct the development as new projects came to town? Would they be pointed to these sites to say this is where you should be looking to see if you can get space, but you can't look anywhere else? Or would that still be open to them?
Having an approved plan production plan, so currently we do have an approved plan production plan, good through 2016, which was 2011 when it was approved, good for 5 years. So in the eyes of DHCD, the Zoning Board of Appeals has some additional leverage with an approved plan production plan. It is viewed as a regulatory document in the sense that the town, the zoning board, can use that plan as a credible planning document because it's approved by the Board of Selectmen as well as the Planning Board and then ultimately DHCD. However, when a community is not operating under safe harbor, the plan does not provide 100% protection, but it is taken into consideration. Similar to the Mill Road experience, and I think this is where some of the portions of the public have seen the process from beginning to end. Once a site is on that plan, it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, for the zoning board to deny a 40B. Again, it's a regulatory document with the assumption and understanding that the message to the development community is that the town has done a credible planning process and has identified that those sites as being an appropriate location for 40B type development. Within that plan, as some of you recall, the town's also asked to pre-identify appropriate number of units or density per acre. So, while the current plan is in operation, or the town chooses to update and seek adoption of a new plan, when I meet with developers, I'm pointing them towards that plan as a starting point. During Safe Harbor, the message is very clear. If the site's not on the plan, it better be a really, really good proposal, one in which there's neighborhood and community support. During Safe Harbor, we've never had a situation other than 271 River Neck Road, which wasn't a typical 40B for Chelmsford. So I think the process in general has been working in the town's benefit. As I said, right now we're not under any safe harbor. We're at 8.5%, 205 more units. The housing market, particularly multifamily, is very, very active. even though I stated that there's no official projects with a site approval letter, I'm aware of a number of sites that I receive inquiries on. They're either on the market currently or developers are looking for opportunities. I'm surprised that we don't have a site approval letter in front of us, to be quite honest. And that may be due to the fact that we have a couple hundred units that have been approved that haven't been built.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Evan, who's here tonight? All right, well, that was a great update. I think that helped clear the air, and we'll look forward to the committee coming in and having a discussion with us as well.
Very good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Okay, we'll move on to town manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have two items for the board's consideration this evening. And the first one, perhaps the chair will help me on,
Sure.
because it does involve the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. But as members of the board may recall, the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments has been directing and leading a regional emergency communication center feasibility study for the past, I think it's going on 4+ years at this point.
Yeah, sounds about right.
That process, in terms of the study and evaluation process, is nearing an end. And so at the outset, I want to inform the board that I would expect that probably within the next 2 months, you'll have a presentation here from people involved in that study, i.e. the executive director or assistant from Northern Middlesex Council of Government and the consultant going to the communities to provide you with a formal report on the study, which I'm not going to go into that level of detail this evening, but I'm basically trying to keep you up to date, and Matt can give the perspective from the NIMCOG board. But basically, we're at a decision point. And they're going to be looking for a commitment, probably in the next, like I said, 2 months, as to who's in and who's out on a regional emergency communication center. Just to put it into context, if such a regional center goes forward, it probably will not. It's not expected to be operational until for at least 4 years. So you're probably talking something that's looking at 2020 in terms of a year of implementation. But the consultant that's done its work, there have been meetings with the study board, and 2 weeks ago, I attended a meeting with the managers from the NIMCOG communities, and basically, we left there with the results of the survey, and I'll just summarize them real quick. Basically, the consensus and the results of the study is that it appears to be advantageous to form a regional emergency communication center in the Greater Lowell area. And the reasons for that is the belief is that it would enhance emergency communication services. It will provide for a more robust emergency communication capability, particularly during periods of great demand, i.e. during major incidents. There are projected to be cost savings for the communities for doing this in terms of operating costs, but also in the investment capital that's needed in the future for updating and modernizing the emergency communication equipment that exists, in our case, in our police station, and obviously in the other communities, and such. And also the idea is that if you have a regional center, then there's better information and communication amongst the member communities. The state has been behind this initiative, and this is why it began. The whole process began about a half dozen years ago under the former governor, and there is a statewide board that's promoting this effort. And thus far, under the current administration, that funding remains in place in what they call the State 911 Grant Funding Center. And basically what the state does is it covers all the capital costs incurred with building a regional facility. And so what they've done is they've done the projected costs, the savings, and so forth. In the case of Chelmsford, to bring it home to what you'll hear when the priest comes out here, is there's a projected annual savings of about $300,000 in the for our costs. So right now we're spending roughly about $700,000 a year in costs for emergency communications. Under the projected budget for a new system, it would be just under $400,000, and then so forth. Looking at all the data in terms of calls and feasibility, the proposal that's on the table right now and was discussed at the most recent meeting would be a 4-community emergency communication center. And those 4 communities would be town of Chelmsford, the city of Lowell, the town of Dracut, and the town of Tewksbury. And then the location for the center, there were 3 locations identified. The first one was the UMass Lowell West Campus, but it was determined, as you heard earlier, that the university has no plans to give up that site, so that was ruled out. The second location was Tewksbury State Hospital, and similarly, the state has not deemed any property there as surplus. And so the third and selected location for this center is in the town of Tewksbury, about 7 miles from here, at the Tewksbury Public Works Yard, where the community there, Tewksbury, plans to build a new fire station. And the idea is they'd build a regional communication center at that location. At the last meeting, just for full disclosure, because as you can imagine, there were ideas put out there, and then people agree or not agree. I offered the suggestion of, well, why not put the emergency communication center in the new courthouse that's to be constructed by the Lord Overpass in Lowell as part of that $200 million investment that the governor just announced 2 weeks ago that he was going to give design funds for. And then the governor basically said, he wasn't going to provide the design money if he didn't intend to build the $200 million facility. And the idea being that a 911 center is pretty much self-contained. People don't visit there unless you have a reason to go there. And that a courthouse, for that kind of a state investment of $200 million, is only used about 40 hours a week, whereas a 911 center is used continuously throughout the day and so forth. To be succinct, the city of Lowell rejected that proposal. They did not want to house that facility. I also so it just pointed out, but it was a suggestion because, again, ideas come up. I also broached the idea, and you'd heard before, and I know Matt has heard, being on NIMCOG, well, what about this whole idea of a regional lockup to save money? Remember, the sheriff been talked about and so forth. And I said, wouldn't that also be another advantageous use at the new Judicial Center in Lowell, and then add a story to the building, put a lockup in the basement, it's contained, nobody sees it. All the prisoners are going there anyway. That also was dismissed by the city of Lowell, that they basically came out and said that they had no interest in housing either a regional emergency. And I'm not here to criticize the city of Lowell, I'm just trying to explain to you the type of discussion that go on in these meetings. So where we are now, the last hang-up, and this is a divisive point at this point, at the last meeting, it was discussed in terms of, well, how would the facility be controlled in terms of who has the say on the operations and budgeting and so forth. And the proposal that was out there and supported by the towns was one town, one vote. That if there are 4 communities, you would need 3 votes to enact a budget, 3 votes to make capital investments, 3 votes to govern the facility by the advisory board. The city of Lowell wants a weighted vote. And that's the impasse. And in fact, we tabled that discussion at the meeting, and there's going to be a meeting tomorrow morning at the Lowell City Hall where the 4 of us managers are going to get together to see if we can bring a resolution or some kind of creativity to come over this impasse. Because right now, that's where it's stalled. And again, it's not for us to make, because as we know, this agreement would be enacted by the boards of selectmen in the community and by the Lowell City Council. So, but we just said as managers, myself and my 2 colleagues from Tewksbury and Drake, that we could not support a center that was basically under the direction or weighted direction in terms of the city of Lowell controlling the facility. And so that's where we're at a pause at this point. So we will attempt to gather tomorrow afternoon to see if we can overcome that. Whether we do or do not, it's going to go back to the NIMCOG board, and I think from there we'll come back to the presentations to the city council and the boards of selectmen in the next, as I said, probably 2 months. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Matt, but that's pretty much where it is.
If I could, I just, to that point, there's a few points I could make, but if Lowell were to walk away at this point, they would be leaving over $300,000 on the table every single year moving forward as well. So I'm sure they're going to be seriously considering that. I don't blame them for asking for a weighted vote, but if the whole point of this is to fight through these small issues and get to the end, and collectively just these 4 communities, some of the smaller communities would likely be joining other regional centers that are already up and running or planned. It's over $1 million a year, every single year for these 4 communities. that could mean more public safety or more money towards other things here in Chelmsford and in Lowell as well. I mean, $300,000 a year. They've added a lot of police officers, and they're still talking about it moving forward. So I'm really hopeful that they're willing to, come to terms with the, the suburban communities and still move forward, because we really do need them. Their numbers really help make the project work. We really do need all 4 communities. It could be done with 3 communities, but there are real economies of scale. That's the point of doing this.
And the issue of the weighted vote has been a popular issue in Lowell lately. They just remember they had that federal issue on the regional school system with Lowell, Greater Lowell Tech, and how they dealt with that. And so again, my comments are not to criticize, it's just to explain what's going on right now. And every where you stand depends upon where you sit. And obviously, as Matt said, from Lowell's perspective, they feel they should have a greater vote, and basically because their population is greater than that of obviously the 3 towns. And this is where but you can see the concerns from the towns that they don't want it to be a city-centric model. So
It wouldn't be based on percentage of contribution?
If it was
for funding it, or
well, Lowell would have 59% of the ratio by doing that because of their population, right?
How about would they? So would they?
the call volume.
Would they?
Their budget
fund
would be they'd have the same
59%
of the budget, exactly. They would.
Budget's based on the call volume.
Right, and I think the problem is, and we've seen this. Our perspective is we saw this with the Neshoba.
RDA?
Well, in the Neshoba Vocational District and others, if you're a minority, then you don't have the say on the budget. You're sort of taking what you have assigned to you. And obviously, if one community has that ability, then in essence, you're kind of like what you see in some of the smaller school districts, the Groton Dunstables, the Concord Carlisles, Acton, Boxborough. You're sort of, if you're the smaller community, you're basically, at the benevolence of the larger community.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's
just
where
my
it's at.
only. Okay, Bob.
How much real money do we save by doing this?
It's the 300,000, 296,000. It's on page 12.
Page 12.
You flip through a couple more pages.
Okay.
So that's the annual savings, just in personnel.
Yeah, but when we got to pay, if we become regional, we're going to have to pay a portion of that, right?
The state will pay all the capital costs, and then we'll pay our assigned of the It'll be an independent governmental entity, similar to a water district or what have you, and then we would be assigned an assessment.
That's why we need to work out those terms
We gotta
very
work out those
carefully.
terms, and there'd be an advisory board and executive director and so forth. The other thought, Bob, is if we don't do something, then we will have on our capital budget, we will have to invest within the next 5 years for communications equipment because ours is getting dated. And that sort of is inside. What's going on right now, there's a lot of changes in technology in the 911 system. Wireless calls, the issue of where the wireless calls being dispatched from, also the texting to 911. Pretty soon you won't have to dial 911. You can do it by a text message.
Right.
All that type of technology that's evolving is what's calling for this constant reinvestment in the next generation of 911 dispatch. And so that's why we know we've got to make a choice somewhere in the next few years of we either join a regional entity or we reinvest in our facility for the equipment.
But we have no guarantee that the people that will work in that regional dispatch will be anyone from Chelmsford or.
No, they will be a trained public safety dispatch and as the report goes on, there would be 47 employees at that facility with 12 people on at a time.
Well, to that point specifically, they'll probably discuss that. But when this has been done in other communities, basically every one of the dispatchers from the current districts are offered a job, and anyone who wants one is essentially always able to fill them. As these things develop, as we said, it'd probably be 4 years out. When the dispatchers get the word, through attrition and through some of them choosing either to come or not to come, it usually works out well, and they usually end up having to post and train a few new people when these happen. So there will, most likely be at least a few dispatchers from
Chelmsford residents in it, and
and actually they get
theoretically,
preference.
yeah,
essentially, everyone who
down
is
the
a
road
current
it could
dispatcher
be,
does.
it could be all Lowell people or all Tewksbury people. We don't know how that's going to be, but I think that's part of the agreement we're going to have to make with them, because there is something to be said about people that know the streets and the intimacy of the town. including the patients.
Sure, and they certainly do get used to it, used to it over time.
Right, we
You know,
see
like
in
our current
other- we see
dispatchers aren't
in-
required.
In most other areas of the country, the dispatch centers cover these county and
Right.
larger geographic areas. So as Matt said, it does work in other areas. It's just not as common here so far.
It kind of reminds me of the school department privatizing their maintenance. I don't want to fall into something where, we didn't know that certain things were going to happen a certain way, so, sometimes you can save 300,000 and then spend 600, but anyway.
Yeah.
Again, we're not asking for a vote.
totally-
We're not asking for a vote. So you've got a formal
Yeah, I know,
presentation, but
I know.
we wanted to bring it to you
Yeah.
because it's becoming very current. My guess is it's being discussed at the other towns' boards of selectmen's meetings
Yep.
this week or next week, and City Council Lowell eventually. And then, like I said, we're having a meeting again tomorrow. So it is very fluid. And as I said, within a couple of months, you'll have a
I
formal
heard there were
presentation.
some towns that weren't going to participate if it wasn't in their community.
There are a variety of reasons why there are obviously other communities in Northern Middlesex County government that have not participated in this study.
Right.
And they've had their own concerns for why not to do so.
How about the three that are,
Oh, there
these
are-
three are committed?
We believe it. Again, we can't commit, it's the boards of selectmen who commit, but the feeling right now is that if an agreement can be satisfactorily reached, that the four communities would move forward together. But that's not our call. That's the call of the boards of selectmen under state law.
Currently, anybody that makes a 911 call from a cell phone, it goes right to the state police,
Right,
basically,
right.
Yeah.
But that would change with the regional 911 center. They would handle those
Yeah,
calls.
that's-
Based
And then
on
they
where the
also would
tower
get,
is.
they also would get the money from the state surcharge to pay for that cost. Right now, there's one up in Essex County that handles a lot of the 911 calls.
That's why we spent this additional year basically reincorporating all of the cell phone numbers into our plan. We're going to get more money when we take that on, and the state is really pushing that. The state wants a local regional center. If it pings, it just goes right to the regional call center where the accident or whatever it is taking place. It's their preference to have it like that, so they're not handling these calls.
Because what's happening over time, right now, more than half the calls that come in are wireless.
Right.
And you can see the trend is going in that direction
Yeah.
for emergency calls. Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, every year it goes up.
All our vehicles and cruisers and what have you, and fire trucks, we all have GPS, they all have GPSs on them?
No, we don't track, some communities do. We do not track our vehicles with
Okay,
GPS.
so-
Trinity does.
That would be part of discussions, but again, every community would decide what they wanted to do.
So
But
if
it-
somebody said, where's, 62 Lock Road, hypothetically speaking, okay? I mean, obviously, I appreciate the fact that you would like to see somebody local who knew where Lock Road was and be able to say, well, Paul, it's off North Road, but, second left, whatever, so that, to expedite them getting there or whatever, but. so,
Yeah, I mean, there's, we don't have to get into it all tonight. They'll have a good presentation. I mean, if you look at, Lowell, for example, what they already have with their police pads in their car, as soon as a call comes in, it shows up in the cop car before the call is even dispatched. An officer can see a call just came in, and they can start driving towards it before they find out if it's a fire or if it's a theft or something else. They're already on their way there, and pretty soon that's going to be the standard. That a call is going to show up on a map in a cop's car, and they can start heading there, and they can see information about the house, if there's any criminal histories, anything. So.
And the idea is the dispatch center can look at a map with the GPS in the vehicles and know who to
Which
dispatch,
cruiser to
because
dispatch,
who's
yeah.
closest to the
Yeah.
scene, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring you up to date as to where we're at. The second and last item I have also pertains to an intermunicipal, but this one's less complicated. 2 weeks ago, I received in the mail a request for an intermunicipal agreement for sewer services at 136 Stedman Street in Chelmsford. To explain what this is about, these come periodically. In this case, 136 Stedman Street in Chelmsford is on Stedman Street, but it's on the other side of Route 3. And so the reason you would connect that property to the Lowell system is it's more cost-effective to connect it to the Lowell system than to run sewer pipe over Route 3 and bring the sewerage back to the town of Chelmsford. We've received this agreement. I've sent it to our town engineer. I also sent it to town council. The engineering and sewer division, they have no concerns with the agreement. It's pretty boilerplate. The city of Lowell has approved it, and the final step would be endorsement by the Board of Selectmen on this effort. Again, I've not received town council's comments on terms of the language of the intermunicipal agreement. But in essence, how it would work is the cost for the connection would be borne by the property owner at 136 Stedman Street. They would have to provide the easements and the cost for the connection. The city of Lowell would bill the town for the sewer usage at the same rate as any city of Lowell resident, and then we would then bill the property owner. And then obviously, if the property owner doesn't pay, in this agreement, the city of Lowell can shut off their sewerage if they fail to make the sewer payment.
Do they have water from Chelmsford?
They do have water.
From Chelmsford?
I don't know where the water's from. It doesn't say in the agreement. It doesn't say. It says they have water. The agreement says that they have water utility, but it doesn't say where it's from.
Yeah, because that's how.
My guess is it would probably be from Lowell, because
Yeah.
it's the same problem. You're not gonna run a pipe across the 6 lanes of 495, to get to Stedman Street, that side of Stedman Street. So that's what's being proposed at 136 Stedman. In full disclosure, because I don't want somebody coming back, in reference to an earlier discussion this evening by Evan Belansky, this 136 Stedman Street is on that list of preferred affordable housing sites.
Oh, it's on the left as you're heading towards Lowell.
Yeah, it's a 3.76
Yeah.
acre parcel of property. Right now, there's a single-family Cape Cod-style home there. So when I shared this internally, Evan came back to me and said, "Hey, Paul, you're aware that this is a site for that's been looked at for affordable housing?" And I said, "Yes, Evan." So
They came in before
I
the
just don't
planning
want
board last year.
Exactly. So I don't want people to think we're being hoodwinked or snookered or whatever.
Yeah, the storage thing. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I just for full disclosure, because
Now, how about the condos that are right after that house? I wonder
They're low.
what they're on.
I think they're in Lowell.
I think that's in Lowell. I don't think
It's
that's in
still
Chelmsford.
before the sign that says entering Lowell.
Right, but I don't know how the boundary goes, but, so that's what we have before us this evening. Again,
So, would you like a motion to approve pending town council's approval of the form of the agreement?
Yeah, if
and
that's-
authorization for you to sign?
yeah, if that's the board's preference.
Yeah,
And
that's fine.
Again, this agreement was drafted by the Lowell City Solicitor, so I don't anticipate there's going to be issues with form, but again, I got to protect our interests, so I sent it to our council, I sent it to our sewer engineering, and then obviously send it to you. But yes, that's where it
And
stands at this
I
point.
think we have to definitely add a caveat in there about how the billing will be done, because
But
if
that's
they're
in
on Lowell,
But
if they're
that's in
on
there.
Lowell water,
That's in there. It's paragraph 6. They'll pay for any and all charges and use of maintenance of sewer from the city under the following process. A, the city buying through its normal billing shall issue its own bill to the town for sewerage, unmetered service per city-town agreement dated October 1st, 2007, at the same rate as City of Lowell resident, and the town will pay the city upon receipt of said bill. The town will then bill property owner, which is, I'll give you this disclosure, it's a public record. The property owner is Patricia Bernard, formerly known as Patricia Papa, so it's a public record. Basically, the Bernard would then bill the city for the services there too.
so
And
it
then obviously
says
goes on to a
unmetered
successful-
service per city-town agreement
Right,
addendum.
right, because we have an unmetered agreement with the city of Lowell for all of our waste that goes to the sewer treatment plant. So in other words, they're part of that, but because we pay capital costs to get it through Lowell, the person at that property would have to pay Chelmsford's costs to get it there. So in other words, that's really a provision that benefits Chelmsford because,
Yeah.
right, so that's what that is. But clearly, it's not the town, we're not responsible, because then if you talk about under 2 later paragraphs, it says, in the event that the payment is not received by the normal due date, the town shall impose all liens to take any legal action to collect the bill, and then in case of non-payment, the city of Lowell, at the town's written request, may terminate city sewer services and notify the property owner of successes and signs, and immediately in the event do so. So basically, you have the right to lien the property, and then worst case, you could terminate the service.
All right. That seems fine to
Okay.
me. Seems appropriate. Good. Any other questions? Would you like to make a motion, Bob?
Yeah, let me get back to the beginning here. I make a motion that we approve the, yeah, I got it right here. that we approve the intermunicipal agreement for sewer services at 136 Stedman Street, Chelmsford,
Do you want to just add
per-
pending town council approval of the form?
pending the town council approval for form on the agreement.
And authorizing the town manager to sign.
Yeah, and authorizing the town manager to sign.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? That's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, move on to agenda item number 8, town accountant fiscal 16 goals. Bob was able to work those out with Darlene. I don't know if you want to just read them into the public
Yeah,
record so
yeah.
people at home can
Yeah,
hear.
we can. Basically, there's 4 of them. And let me get to the right one.
Oh, I think the one on the
Bottom of
packet
the
is
second
not-
page.
The packet, that isn't right. No. Okay, thank you. Goals and objectives. Okay, so goal number 1 is complete single chart of accounts with the town and the school. That's kind of ongoing at this point, right, Paul? Allows one server and save support dollars, omit having to maintain a cross-reference account file, increase the accuracy and timelessness of vendor payroll processing, no longer requiring the school to duplicate revenue and adjusting entries. Number 2 is address items that will be contained in the fiscal year 15 financial management letter on the general government side. Number 3 is work with the school business manager to develop, explore, and improve new processes between town and school for more cost-effective matters. Number 4 is complete the last portion of the certification by the Mass Municipal Auditors and Accounts Association. The exam will be given on March 2016. And that's it.
Great. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add? Any comments or changes to those goals before we approve them as part of Darlene's?
Actually, I put that employee comments, but that really should be the employer comments on the back page. That was my comment. So we
Oh,
can-
okay.
Yeah, we can
Would that,
either cross it out or move it.
okay, so you can make a motion to approve with that amendment if you
Yep.
like.
Move to approve the goals for Darlene Lucia, the town accountant, as stated.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? That's unanimous. Okay, great, thank you. Agenda item number 9, town manager goals, fiscal year 2016. If you recall from our last meeting, we went over the current goals and had discussed a potential change or two. That was brought forth by Janet, so I'll let her maybe start off this evening.
Last week, I had the opportunity to, I was on vacation, I was unplugged, and it gave me an opportunity to really think about my back and forth with the town manager and our discussion here. And we also went through, right before I went on vacation, went through performance appraisals at work. And, it was just a reminder for me that we set goals for employees that are motivating for the employee. And, while I do have my beliefs, I do not want to impose a goal on the town manager that he's strongly opposed to, or that would demotivate him for the year. So, I'd like to save this conversation for the budget process, which we'll have, I guess, at some point here in the near future. So I withdraw my proposed goal of a balanced budget without the use of stabilization funds or free cash.
Okay.
And we either come up with a different goal or we just stick with the goals that are proposed on the form.
Okay, all right, thank you, Janet. So that motion is off the table. I did have one question or comment that we didn't 100% clarify at the last meeting. That was goal number 1, the major capital projects. I had said I'd be happy to take those off, but I'm not sure if that's something we did want to leave because it's been on there for a few years. If we should just take it off, I didn't really poll the board. I'm perfectly happy just leaving it on there
Why would you take it
because it
off?
is good
It's
as a
something
constant
that can be
reminder.
measured,
Yeah.
and
So-
Paul does do that through the year, but I guess it's just a, it's a good goal to have, and I
Right, good
think
job.
keep on there.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's lots of projects that aren't done yet, so,
Yeah.
like the landfill solar services and Katrina,
And there may be some new
brownfields,
projects that come up through the year.
Dog pound, the dog park, and grinder pump bylaw. So they're all gonna be needing his attention during the year.
Right, great. So, I mean, I think, given that, we can certainly have those discussions we talked about, during the regular budget hearings. And so if there are no more comments, would anyone else like to make any other additional comments on the goals as they're currently written? I'd entertain a motion to adopt the goals as presented.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, you're the motioner. Make a motion to adopt the town manager goals as presented in the annual non-union employee performance review.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you. Got a lot to work on, Paul. We have confidence in you. All right, so where'd my agenda go now? Okay, appointments. There's
Just one matter for appointment this evening, and that's to the Cultural Council, the appointment of Carol Roach of Woodbine Street for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2018.
Okay.
Any questions? Would you like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the appointment of Carol Roach to the Chelmsford Cultural Council as per the manager's nomination.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Move on to meeting minutes. Regular meeting minutes of June 1st, 2015. Are there any final comments or corrections to those minutes? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen for June 1st, 2015, as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous. And the regular meeting minutes of June 15th, 2015.
I'll be abstaining.
Let me find it here.
Hold up.
Okay, I move we approve the regular meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen for June 15th, 2015, as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions?
Abstain.
Vivian, did you get the one abstention? Janet abstained? Okay, great. And the regular meeting minutes of June 29th, 2015.
I move we approve the regular meeting minutes for June 29th, 2015, as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Nays or abstentions? It's unanimous.
About the executive session?
It's not listed. I don't think that's listed on the.
It's above the
Agenda to
June 29th minutes
I don't-
online.
We went into executive.
Yeah, but maybe they're not ready to be voted on.
Yeah. That's in the minutes of that meeting, sorry. So these aren't being voted on. It was in that meeting that we voted on those minutes. Does that make sense?
Okay,
No problem.
you say so.
I do. Why don't we move on to Selectmen Liaison Reports and Referrals? Janet?
I looked up and
Yeah,
there you go.
it's like being in class.
Okay, so just a few quick updates regarding the Board of Health. I was out of town, I was not able to attend their meeting, but I spoke with them. They had a hearing regarding the modification of tobacco regulations, raising the tobacco sales to age 21. Unfortunately, they didn't have much in attendance, so they're going to have another hearing at their next meeting, which should be August 3rd. Their meeting starts at 6:15. And I think it's very important, if anybody's concerned about this change, that they do show up and ask questions, voice any concerns.
I was gonna ask, I don't know if they've done anything particular or special to post that public hearing, if they've just gone through the public process of posting it in, 48 hours in advance, or,
Okay.
I mean,
I can talk with them about maybe
curious.
putting it out on some of
Maybe
the...
on our website or something. It's kind of
Yeah.
a big it's kind of a big deal. It's one of those things I feel if we don't get the word out now and people can voice their concerns and they find out about it after when they go up to a gas station, I'd rather have people know ahead of time and be able to give their input than have people upset after the
I'll talk
fact.
with them about reaching out to the papers, social media, maybe WBZ would be interested. Also, the 101 Mill Road Committee is going to have a meeting this Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. They're continuing to solicit public input, and they're going to have discussions about the website and, different uses that they continue to entertain. School committee met Tuesday evening. They have created a subcommittee. Barbara Scar and Sal Lopoli are going to be on this subcommittee to further look into high school fundraising and ways to improve the process and better coordinate across all groups. I know when I was on the school committee, there's always been this issue where the different groups, different sports groups, arts and science, they're all doing their fundraising efforts, and it's not very coordinated. So they tend to keep going back to the same people and possibly trying to sell the same thing, so they get the response of, oh, I just bought one of those cards, or I just did that. So they're trying to make it a little more fair and coordinated. So the subcommittee is going to look at that process, try to improve it. Some good news, Carol Fredette has been hired as the interim director of student services, which is for their special education program. She retired, and Carol is excellent. I think she definitely sets the bar for her profession, so it's wonderful that she's back. I believe the thought is she'd be back for the summer and the fall to try to help them get through until they can hire someone. School choice, they were able to fill, of course, all 27 slots, which is good, and that's it.
Laura?
I have one thing, at the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, looks like the DPW has gone out and marked all the dangerous trees on the bike.
I can't hear you.
You said it would
And I'm right here.
You said it would pick me up wherever I was. They marked all the dangerous trees on the trail, and they will be beginning to remove them starting the first Tuesday in August and every subsequent Tuesday for a few weeks. So there may be partial closings between 7 and 3 during the day. And then, based on how far they get, they may do some other heavy work in the late fall when people are not using the trail so much.
Great, thank you. Bob, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, just one thing. The last meeting I had brought to Paul's attention the Algonquin, the pole.
Yeah, the streetlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anything been done on
I
it?
forwarded that on to DPW. They said they'd get on it.
Okay.
So I imagine it's there, yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, George, do you have anything for us?
Friday night, we had we were at the Cal Ripken baseball, state baseball regional tournament hosted by Chelmsford out here at the volunteer field, and it was a great crowd, and it's really nice to see all the volunteers in town and the people from other areas. I think they had 30 rooms booked at the Radisson, and so I'm hoping that the town did fairly well and the people enjoyed themselves. I think they were postponed today, so I don't know who the champion was. I think Chelmsford was playing in the championship game today, but I think it was fairly late because they lost one day for weather. And I'd like to compliment PAL, the Police Athletic League. They were there. The Honor Guard was there, and they were doing all their. They were selling, they were handling all the hot dogs and hamburgers and raising the money and doing a lot of the work. And on another note, with PAL, I was very happy that we had some unfortunate situation at Varney Playground with the scoreboard, some vandalism, and hopefully if it can be repaired, I got a call from one of the leaders, the president of PAL, and he said that they would be willing to pay for the repair of the scoreboard if it is repairable. So I really, they raise a lot of money, they just had a big golf tournament, but they do a lot of things for charity, and I think they get overlooked a lot of times, so. My hat's off to the Police Athletic League and all the officers that volunteer their time and do a lot of work for the kids in town, so, thank you.
Great, thank you, George. One thing actually, and Tom, since you're still here, I may ask, I'd meant to reach out to you before the meeting to ask if your committee had already considered any dates for a tri-board meeting, if you had a few dates in mind you'd like us to consider.
Well, since we just got 2 new members, as you know, I have a meeting scheduled for our group on the 6th of August. I know a lot of people are using August as their vacation period, so I'm not sure if that August will work, but maybe early September, I don't know, sure what your thoughts are.
Well, as soon as possible. I mean, maybe we can have just a chairman's meeting in the meantime.
Well, I mean, just, throw some dates out there and we'll see what we can do. You want to just do the chairman's meeting, or you want to do, all the committees together? It's a little more difficult this time of the year, but I can try to be available.
All right. I think our board had been hoping to have one in August. I mean, we could maybe,
I think we were just
Pick a date.
reacting to a request from them. So,
After Labor Day.
I think the new
Labor Day.
superintendent.
We can certainly do that,
Suggestion to me, from the school committee to me.
right.
It's got-
Okay. I can maybe talk to the school committee and see if they're really rushing to have a meeting soon, or if we can schedule it a little later. We can do that off the table then, but I figured if you had some dates in mind, I'd ask now. Okay. Other than that, it's good to see that Hard Pond is back in action. I know they've been doing some treatments there, but once that period's ended, a lot of people have been using it, kayaking, fishing, swimming, all around the pond, and of course the Brewsterman Rail Trail has been very active lately, so that's very good to see. Just want to announce my office hours at Panera Bread on Thursdays from 5 to 6 p.m. That's all. Are there any press questions tonight? I do not see anyone. Next regular meeting is August 10th, 2015. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.